Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Vihari, Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda, Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivivekacharya Ashtotata Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8. Entitled Questions by King Parikshit, reading from text number 15. Please repeat. Bhupatala Kakubyoma Graha Nakshatra Bhupritam Sarit Samudra Dvipanam Sambhavas Chetad Okasham Bhupatala Kakubyoma Graha Nakshatra Bhubritam Sarit Samudra Dvipanam Sambhavas Chetad Okasham Bhupatala Kakubyoma Graha Nakshatra Bhubritam Sarit Samudra Dvipanam Sambhavas Chetad Okasham Bhu, Patala, underneath the land. Kakup, the four sides of the heavens. Vyoma, the sky. Graha, the planets. Nakshatra, the stars. Bhubritam, of the hills. Sarit, the river. Samudra, the sea. Dvipanam, of the islands. Sambhava, appearance. Cha, also. Etat, there. Okasham, of the inhabitants. Translation. O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the sky, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers and the seas and the islands, as well as their different kinds of inhabitants take place. Please repeat after me. O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the sky, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the seas and the islands, as well as their different kinds of inhabitants take place. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The inhabitants of different varieties of land, etc., are differently situated, and not all of them are equal in all respects. The inhabitants of the land are different from the inhabitants of the water or the sky, and similarly, the inhabitants of the different planets and stars in the sky are also different from one another. By the laws of the Lord, no place is vacant, but the creatures of one particular place are different from those of other places. Even in human society, the inhabitants of the jungles or the deserts are different from those of the cities and villages. They are so made according to the different qualities of the modes of nature. Such adjustment by the laws of nature is not blind. There is a great plan behind the arrangement. Maharaj Parikshit requests the great sage Shukadeva Goswami to explain all of these authoritatively in accordance with proper understanding. Om Nagantamanda Jaganantana Shalakaya Shakshi Militam Yaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vancha Kalpatarupaschat Vipasundho Vacha Patitnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The translation again. O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the sky, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the seas and the islands, as well as their different kinds of inhabitants take place. So, just a little introduction. You've all heard of the main event or the main premiere event. Well, we've just been having that with Maharaj, and sometimes in a main event you get an intermission but you get some adverts and a bit of refreshment, a bit of entertainment, and then we'll come back to the main event a bit later. So please forgive me. But we can see in this part of the 8th chapter of the Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj is further inquiring into the details of the Lord's creation. And I found it quite interesting that Parikshit Maharaj, he's inquiring about the details of the Lord's creation, but he only has 7 days to live. Right? And then he has to, doesn't have to, but he'll exit the Lord's creation for good. He'll go back to the spiritual world. And Shukadeva Goswami, well, he's explaining these details to Parikshit Maharaj, but he doesn't identify with the material creation. And it's explained that when Shukadeva Goswami appeared in the world, he decided to leave his family straight away. So he left for the forest. And as he was leaving to the forest, he passed by a lake, and there were naked young ladies bathing. And he was naked as well. He was running past, and they saw him, and they didn't do anything. They didn't feel any fear or apprehension. And they just continued as they were doing bathing. But his father, Vyasadeva, he was chasing after his son, and when the young lady saw him passing by, he was fully dressed as well, and he was old enough to be their father. But they immediately, hastily put their clothes on. And it's explained by a great sage, the ladies who were bathing, when they saw Shukadeva Goswami, the young son, because he was a liberated soul, he didn't identify with the body, he didn't distinguish between male and female. And when his father went chasing his son and he came by, even though he was old enough to be their father, he was a grihasta, right? Because that was his son who was chasing, and he had a wife, so he had to identify with the body. I'm sure his wife wouldn't be so happy if he didn't identify with his wife's body. You know, he's a grihasta in that way, so they immediately put clothes on their body. And so how is it that Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring into the Lord's creation and Shukadeva Goswami is explaining the creation to him? The reason why is because the creation is connected to Krishna. Right? It's one of Krishna's energy, it's his material energy. And Srila Prabhupada, he, when he was on the planet, he established a BBT, which is the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. And a lot of the artists then, because as we see in the Bhagavatam, we have many nice paintings in the Bhagavatam, and the artists would paint these paintings and they would approach Srila Prabhupada to get his approval. So they would, if he said they're okay, they'd put them in the pages of the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita and other books that Prabhupada wrote. And at this time, all the BBT artists were drawing pictures of Krishna and the gopis. All right, Krishna with the Rasa Leela, Krishna with Radharani. And Prabhupada exclaimed, he said, what's all these pictures with Krishna and the gopis? I want to see Krishna create. I want to see how he creates the material world and his creative function. And Prabhupada understood that the topic of Krishna and the gopis is very elevated and very advanced, and we should at least start to understand or appreciate Krishna's energies, particularly his material energy, because this is where we're stuck. We're in the material world. So in the translation, it's explained, O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globe throughout the universe, the four directions, and all the details of this universe take place. So we understand that Krishna in the spiritual world is in original form. He just enjoys. He's with the cowherd boys, and as we see on the middle altar, he's with his consort Radharani, and he plays with the cows and he performs all these amazing pastimes. So it's just pure enjoyment. So when Krishna wants to create, he expands himself. And it's explained in the Brahma Samhita, Dipacha eva hitasantam abhupecha dipayate vipate hetu samana dhamma. So just as you get one candle and the flame from that candle, you use it to communicate with other candles, and you get another candle to communicate. They all come from the original candle. So Krishna is considered the original personality. And when he wants to create, he expands himself, right, into different incarnations. And 3 of these incarnations are called the Purusha avatars. And they primarily deal with the material creation. And the first one is Maha Vishnu. And we have the vast creation of the Lord, and in a corner of it there is the material creation. And you can imagine if it's like in the city of Sydney, you know, like a big city, and in the corner of the city in some part there's a prison, a jail. So the material creation is considered like a jail. And we're like inmates, because we wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna, so we get this opportunity to live in the material world. So Maha Vishnu, what his function or what his service is, he creates the material ingredients, and it's called the pradhana. So they're unmanifested material ingredients. It's a bit like we have some amazing cake makers here. Here's Srimati here. She makes nice cakes for the deities. So she gets all the ingredients, the milk, the butter, the flour, the sugar, and she just puts them there. But at that point in time, they're not doing anything there. They're unmanifested. And then what Mahavishnu does then, he glances into these ingredients and they become manifest. But he doesn't also just glance, he impregnates. I think there's 16 elements. I only know a few. One of them's colour, time. Another one's karma, the living entities, the false ego, and the 3 modes of material nature. And the material nature becomes activated just by Krishna's glancing. And the scientists almost have it right. You know, they say there's a Big Bang, all right? And from the Big Bang, this cosmic soup manifests and all the ingredients collide, and I'm only giving a summary, I don't know it so well, and then the universe expands from that. So we accept there's a Big Bang, you know, but it's not what they think. We say Krishna glances, right? Krishna is not as gross as the materialist. He's very subtle and very refined. When he wants to create, he just does it so beautifully. He just glances and impregnates with his eyes. And the cosmic soup, they're almost right with that as well. It's the pradhana. It's the unmanifested material ingredients. And from there, from Mahavishnu, Maha Vishnu, when all the ingredients are activated, and the Mahatattva is alive, Mahatattva means a total material energy, then it's time for the universes to appear. And the universes appear from the pores of Maha Vishnu. Right? You can imagine how many pores we have in our skin. And the body of Maha Vishnu, all the universes appear. And when the universes appear, his next incarnation to help with the creation enters within each universe. And the universe is like an egg shape. And it's all empty. And what Govardhana Shri Vishnu does, he half fills this universe full of water, his perspiration. And he doesn't fill it up with his perspiration because he's working hard. All right, Krishna doesn't work. It was particularly the Vishnu incarnations. They enjoy as well, even though they're creating. So they half fill the universe full of water, and then I think I might get clarification on. Is this where Ananta lies on the ocean, in the Govardhana ocean, or is it the Karana ocean? Gava. Yeah. So then both is it? Okay. Yeah. So then on this ocean, then his servant, Ananta, which is a servant with 1,000 hoods, he lies on this Govardhana ocean, and Govardhana Vishnu then lies on him. Right? And this is how Vishnu enjoys, he just lies on Ananta, like people lie in a floaty in a pool. And then his wife, Lakshmi Devi, she then massages his feet very nicely. And through this service, he just dozes off into sleep. And from then, the next part of the creation is that from Govardhana Shri Vishnu's navel, a lotus stem sprouts, and on top of that lotus, the stem, is a lotus flower manifests. And there Lord Brahma appears. Now he doesn't really know his function at this point in time, he's a bit bewildered, but then he goes into meditation and performs austerity. And by doing that, Krishna then reveals to Lord Brahma how to create the material planets. And we can see here that this is part of the translation. They're asking how the planets are created throughout the universe. So that's Brahma, he's a secondary creator. He creates the 14 planetary systems and also the bodies for the living entities. And the reason why the planets and the bodies for the living entities are created is because we wanted to be here. We wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna. So Krishna's very kind. He creates an amazing place called the material world so we can come here and try and fulfill our desires. And not only that, but he gives us a menu. Right? Just like you go into a restaurant and you get a menu of things that you want to choose from. So Krishna's so kind, he gives us a menu of 8,400,000 species. Take your pick. You can get a snake body, or sometimes I see cockroaches running around. You can get one of those bodies, but these cockroaches are very fortunate because some of them run on the altar in front of Krishna. Or you can get a demigod body. Just to take your pick from that. And it's explained in the translation that they are so made, right, these bodies, according to the different qualities of the modes of material nature. So as we understand in the Bhagavad Gita, Prushaho Prakritisto hi Punkte Prakriti Jangunam Karanam Guna Sangosa Satasadyoni Jamasu. It's explained the living entity just follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. And this is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species of life. So we can see the living entity comes to the material world and we just get thrown around by the modes of material nature. And we get put into good situations and negative situations. And due to contact with these modes of material nature, which are goodness, passion, ignorance, in our next life we get a certain body, which is a combination of these modes. We can get, like I said, a snake body, a ghost body, or a demigod body. And Prabhupada says if we live in the mode of goodness this life, we may get a heavenly body. And if we live in the mode of passion, we may get another human body. And if we live in the mode of ignorance, we may get an animal body or less. And Prabhupada says the greatest fear is to lose a human form of life and go into an animal body, because it's very hard. It takes a long time to get back up. And Srila Prabhupada was quoted as saying, go to sleep as a human being and wake up like a dog. You know, we may leave this body and we don't know what we're going to end up with in our next life. So there's a story in the Srimad Bhagavatam about an avadut brahmana. And Prahlad Maharaj, who's one of our teachers, he was ruling the universe, and he was travelling throughout the universe with his associates, and his reason for travelling is that he wanted to study the behaviour of saintly people. This is a sport that saintly people do. A lot of people go to football and cricket, but saintly people, we like to, study and, the character and behaviour of saintly people. The reason is because we can learn from them. We can take on their spiritual qualities. So as he was travelling through this path, he came across an avadut brahmana. Now, an avadut means they've given up all hope in the material world. They don't want to make a home in the material world. And this avadut brahmana was lying on the path, and he was just covered in dirt. He was very dishevelled. He was quite large, actually. And he had all matted locks in his hair because he'd been in this situation for a while. And Prahlad Maharaj, he approached him, and he could see by his physiognomy, just by looking at this saintly person, that he was a very highly advanced person. And it's very hard nowadays for people to, identify a saintly person. I mean, nowadays people take ordinary people to be saintly and saintly people to be ordinary people. And I can remember when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, and I think I hadn't had much contact with my parents before I become a Hare Krishna. And for 7 years I was practicing, I didn't contact my parents at all. We weren't so close. And then I thought, well, I think I've got a bit of a grasp on this Hare Krishna thing. Took me a while, and after 7 years I thought, I'll go see my mum, because I realised I'm not so fanatical, so I won't scare them with all this philosophy. And my friend and I were travelling, my godbrother Stan Babar, we were travelling in a van doing book distribution from Melbourne to Adelaide. And I arranged my parents to meet him, so I dropped my friend off at the Adelaide Temple, and I went down the coast and saw my mum. And when my mum first saw me, she looked at me, she goes, "What's this?" I just said, "Oh, it's just a hairstyle, try to play it down." And she goes, "Well, I don't like it. I think it's pretty weird." I said, "I like you with the other hair, your longer hair." I said, "Oh, all right, Mum, I'll try and adjust." And then she got into mum mode. So mum mode means, can I cook for you? Can I clean some things? Can I, do something for you? So I said, yeah, I've got lots of cleaning to do in my van, my washing, so I'll bring it out. So I gave it to my mum, and she took it to the washing machine. She came back, and she looked at me really bewildered, like, what's going on? And she goes, what have you got so many bed sheets for? And I realised I gave her like half a dozen of my white dhotis. And she was like, I don't know why you got so many bed sheets for, like, what are you doing? And so I said, I admitted then, I said, she didn't even know really what a Hare Krishna was. So I said, I'm a Hare Krishna, and these are my robes, and this thing is our haircut. And she was okay with that. And then later in the day, my dad came home. And I think my mum must have been, oh my God, our son's a Hare Krishna. Be prepared. Because he's a real Aussie. And so we were sitting out in the outside entertainment area. And I can remember my dad, he was quite reserved and a bit respectful. I was talking about Hare Krishna. And then it was summertime and the school holidays, so I don't know if they do it here, but in Adelaide, they used to have these ice cream trucks that would go around the blocks, and they'd stop and they'd ring the bell and all the kids would come out and grab ice cream. It was a big thing. So as the truck came past our place, it stopped near our place, and we were talking Hare Krishna. And I'm trying to explain the basics. And then the truck started ringing this bell. Ding, 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 ding. And my dad, being a bit of a joker, he goes, I won't say the words he said, but he goes, you didn't bring your Hare Krishna friends with you, did you? With all those bells and ringing. And I said, yeah, good one, Dad. I was thinking if it did, it'd be a bit more fun than being here being here with you guys. But I didn't say that. But I could have invited him to the Harinam party as well. But my dad actually did appreciate at some point, he mentioned twice that I noticed something different about your son. I noticed you got like a brighter face, and you seem a bit more alert, and your eyes, they're a bit glistening, and to previously what I was. And you seem to be very sharper and a bit more kind of, relaxed, and you could identify there was some change. I'm not a full devotee, but I was becoming a devotee. And in this pastime with Prahlad Maharaj, he could identify these symptoms not manifesting, but fully manifesting this Avadut Brahmana. He could see that he was a fully spiritually realised person, and it's called a Paramahamsa. So then he offered his respectful obeisances to this Avadut Brahmana, and he asked him a few questions. He said, I notice here that you're looking very stout, you have a big body, but you don't seem to be endeavouring so much. And not only that, but you're very spiritually realised. So the Avadut Brahmana, he was very pleased with these sweet words from Prahlad Maharaj, and then he replied to the questions. And he said, I have two gurus. He said, one is the bee and one is the python. I learned from these two gurus, and from the bee I learned that the bee collects honey. It goes to different flowers and collects honey and puts it in the hive. And then at some point, the beekeeper just comes and takes it. All the hard work from the bee, and it's all taken by the beekeeper. So I learned, why should I live in the material world just accumulating and endeavouring to accumulate so many things when at the time of death it's going to be taken all away? And also I learned from the python that the python just lies there and he doesn't really do anything, but somehow his maintenance is given. So from the python I learned, why should I run around the material world crazy, trying to endeavour for the things and be happy in the world when my happiness and distress is automatically going to come? And we can even find some people, they get they choose their dream house, they get a massive mortgage, and there's a conception that I'm going to be happy in this house. And a lot of people, from my understanding during this period in time, is that they've lost their jobs. They can't make the mortgage payments, so this facility of enjoyment becomes a facility of distress, just like that, and they didn't endeavour for it. And this is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tailapyate dukkavad anyutasukam kalena savitra gabiharam hasa. It's explained that as far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it is automatically obtained in due course of time. Just like in due course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire them. So in the Bhagavatam explains that why endeavour for happiness? It's going to come. Right? We get this body and we get a karmic package, and in that package comes a certain amount of happiness and a certain amount of distress. And it doesn't matter what we choose to add into our lives, we're going to get a certain amount of happiness and a certain amount of distress. So this Avadut Brahmana thought, well, I'm just going to lie here and just let happiness and distress come of its own accord. I'm not going to run around the material world crazy and try and get these things when it's just going to come of its own accord. And the Avadut Brahmana is showing by this example that if we just surrender to Krishna and rely on Krishna and don't run around crazy for our things, Krishna will provide everything we need. And Krishna is called the cause of creation, the cause of all causes. And not only that, but he can be the cause of our exit as well. He can help us get out of the material world. And the meaning of cause, it means a person or a thing that gives rise to an action. The material world is caused by many actions, but it's not what the scientists say, the Big Bang. We understand that the cause of all causes, the cause of the creation, is Krishna. And we'll accept the scientists' theory of the Big Bang if they accept our theory or our understanding that Krishna presses the button, all right, that causes the bang. Because Krishna is always the beginning of the creation. And, as we understand as well, he's also, in Maha Vishnu and Garbhodaka Shri Vishnu, he's also part of, not the start of the creation, but he's also involved in every part of the material creation. And there's a great philosopher called Aristotle who was Greek, and he explained 4 causes. He said the 4 causes, the first one is the ingredient cause. So just like we get the ingredients, out near where we live on the farm, there's lots of buildings getting built, so we see the builders are getting all the materials together. all the mortar, bricks, tiles, roofing, and they just leave it there. So that's the ingredient cause. There's nothing going to happen to it. It's just going to sit there until Aristotle says the next part of the cause, which is called the efficient cause. And the efficient cause means that we have to get some hands on the ingredients to start building. And just like Maha Mantra, our builder on the farm, all the materials are there, and he comes and he gets all his workers and they start building. But there's also another part of the cause, is that you just can't start building things without a plan. And even nowadays, if you want to build a house, you need to submit a plan to the council to get it approved, because if you get a whole bunch of builders just building things, then it might not be safe and it might not turn out the way you expect. So part of the formal cause is having a plan as well. And then another part of the cause of all causes and of the creation is that Aristotle said it's a final cause. I mean, he's partly right, but he says the final cause is that there is a purpose and intention behind the creation. And he leaves it at that. But we understand that in order for there to be a purpose and intention given to a creation, there has to be a personality behind it. You can't just have a purpose and intention manifest from nothing. It's just like, we have a washing machine. Everyone has a washing machine. So at some point someone created a washing machine. But there was a purpose and intention behind it. It's because someone, a personality, wanted washing to be easier for people. So therefore they made the washing machine. But there was always a personality behind that aspect of the creation. And if there's a purpose and intention for the creation, as I said, we should learn about the personality behind the creation. And it's a bit difficult though, because we understand that Krishna is called Achincha, which means inconceivable. And as we read in this part of the Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring from Shukadeva Goswami about these different aspects of the material creation, because he admits that, his senses are very limited and he can't understand a lot of these things in the creation which we can't see. And we also understand that, our senses are very limited. It's a defect which, we have as human beings. But also the animals have better sense perception than we do. We understand the dogs have a great sense of smelling power. They're always chasing the smell. Sometimes they, run onto roads still smelling. And, they stop cars and cars beep the horns and they don't really care. They just, off they go again. And they have a great sense of smelling power and also hawks as well. They have amazing sense of sight. They can be hundreds of metres in the sky and they can see a little mouse right from miles away. They sweep it down and pick it up and have a little mousey for dinner. And also elephants as well. I was looking at elephants, and the amazing feature of elephants is that the female elephant can communicate with a rumble. Alright, and it travels for miles, right? And it's amazing because it travels on a frequency of 12 hertz. Alright, and that female elephants can hear it, and the most amazing thing is that the males also communicate with a rumble, but they transmit their rumble on 13 hertz, right? So it's different frequency. And I was thinking, man, that's maybe why the elephants are so peaceful, because they don't have to listen to each other. And I was thinking, that wouldn't so much work in human existence, because I know when I go home I have to be on my wife's frequency. And I have to have my ears, not like elephant ears, but I have to be really listening. So we understand from this example that, we have limited senses. And so when we hear these inconceivable descriptions, how can we accept them? One way is through authority, right? Because we understand that Krishna created the creation. He gave that knowledge to Lord Brahma. Brahma then gave it to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva then gave it to Shukadeva Goswami. And Shukadeva Goswami has been given the knowledge, or is given the knowledge to Parikshit Maharaj. So it's coming from Krishna, and Krishna knows how he creates. He knows all the details. So that's one way we can accept this knowledge. And another way, my friend Kesava Prabhu in Melbourne, he gave a nice example on how we accept this inconceivable knowledge, even though we can't see it. And he says it's because of chanting of Hare Krishna. And the reason is because when we chant Hare Krishna, we have a visceral experience on how our life is being transformed. Right? Who has the experience of being transformed to a certain degree of chanting Hare Krishna? Yeah, of course. We become less attracted to the material world, and our material desires become distant, and we become very attracted, well, let's put it in perspective, we become a little bit attracted to Krishna. All right, just a little bit, little increments at a time. So we have this experience, and that gives us faith by chanting Hare Krishna, that, we develop this faith in chanting Hare Krishna. And therefore, when we hear this, Maha Vishnu has universes emanating from the pores of his skin, and, a lotus appears from the navel of Garbhodaka Vishnu, and it's like, it's so inconceivable. But because of the faith in the chanting, we accept it. And an example is given if we go to the doctor. We don't know if the doctor is going to give us medicine that's going to kill us. He could be prescribing anything, and we just take it in faith that it's going to, make us feel better. And a lot of the time it does. So when we go to the doctor next time and he tells us, your blood corpuscles are expanding and it's all thinning out, and your pancreas is shot, and your arteries are all blocked. We can't perceive this. We just accept on faith what the doctor is telling us is real. Because we've taken the medicine from him before and we've had a positive experience, we naturally accept the knowledge that he's giving us. And this is, how we accept one way or two ways, how we accept inconceivable knowledge. So another thing we should consider as well is what qualifies us to receive this knowledge, this inconceivable knowledge about Krishna and his different energies. And it's explained in the Bhagavad Gita, Iti tu te guyatamam prabhakshami anusayave Gyanam vigyan sahitam yajgava mokshase shubhat. So this is Krishna speaking to Arjuna, and he says, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall describe to you the most confidential knowledge, knowing which you will be relieved from all material miseries. So, because he's not envious, this is one of the qualifications how you can receive knowledge from Krishna. And envy is called envy is called matsaya. Now, what does matsaya sound familiar to? Matsaya. Matsya, the fish incarnation. And if we see the fish world, right, we see in the fish world, if you observe it, it's just little fish running away from big fish, right? Because all the big fish want to do, they just want to eat all the little fish. And we understand, the big fish is looking at the little fish and is thinking, if you eat all that food, which is for me, all right, you're going to get bigger and you're going to eat me, so I'll eat you first. And you see all the fish are just like in fear of each other. And even as human beings, we're also very envious, and we act a bit similar to the fish as well, in the sense that sometimes we walk out of our house and we walk onto the street. We're going to work. A lot of us are professionals, or we're professionals. Some of us, not me, but our visitors and that. You go to work, you walk out the house, and we just squash a bug. And we don't even consider it. We don't even acknowledge it. And that bug's going to work as well. He's got his little briefcase. He's got his suit. He's just left his bug family and he's going out to work. And suddenly he just doesn't exist anymore. And he was going out to work and bring back all the food, for his little bug family. And we just go, squash and think, this planet isn't big enough for the two of us. You don't deserve to live. So the envy pervades the whole material creation. And it originally comes from envy towards Krishna. So another way to become free from this envy towards Krishna is to try and understand the purpose and intention behind the creation according to Krishna's understanding, not according to our understanding. Because in the translation here, it's explained there was a great plan behind the arrangement of Krishna's creation. So we try and understand the creation according to our plan, We just try and enjoy the material creation, but that's not the great plan. It's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Amayo Yascha Bhutana Jaita Yana Srivita Tad Avya Hi Ayam Dravyam Na Punadi Chikitsitam. So this is Vyasadeva asking Narada Muni, O good soul, does not a thing when applied therapeutically cure a disease which is caused by that very same thing? O good soul, does not a thing when applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing? So the disease is that according to our plan, we're using everything of the Lord's creation for our enjoyment. That's the disease. But by serving Krishna in devotional service, we can take those same things that we use in our lives that are causing the disease of envy and use them in Krishna service. And that's how we become purified of this disease called envy. And as we see in every stage of the creation, right, as I said, it's inconceivable. Right, everything belongs to Krishna. And I was just thinking actually that this inconceivable nature of Krishna and his creation is, as we hear from the pores of Maha Vishnu, this is how insignificant we are and how we can't get a grasp on Krishna's plan. It's because the universes emanate from Maha Vishnu, right? And we understand there's unlimited universes emanating from his pores. Within each universe, there's 14 planetary systems. And we're in the middle planetary system called Earth. And within this Earth planet, there's 7 continents. Yeah, 7 continents. And we're in the continent of Australia. And in the Australian continent, there's 7 states. And we're in New South Wales. And within New South Wales, there's many, many villages and towns. And we just happen to be in Nimawulumbar. And near Mawulumbar, we're here at New Govardhana. What an amazing place to be. And at New Govardhana, we're in the temple. So how, being here, can we conceive of anything that happens, going right back to Maha Vishnu? It's inconceivable. So that's why we accept, or we should try and learn about the personality of Godhead and his plan for the creation. And this is what we're doing in Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means we understand Krishna's plan behind the creation, or one of the plans. And that is that we use the creation in his service, everything that we have in our possession. And there's a word in this verse, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I just gave, called Chikitsitam. And Chikitsitam means remedial measure. And I looked up this word, remedial measure, and it means an action or a measure which is used to prevent the release of hazardous substances. So it's an action or measure to prevent the release of hazardous substances. So the hazardous substance in the material world is envy. And devotional service, it helps us prevent it from leaking into our consciousness. And not only does it help us prevent it leaking into our consciousness, but it also cures it and it purifies it. This is what devotional service does. Devotional service is the remedial measure for envy. And just like Parikshit Maharaj, he was free from envy, and therefore he was qualified to sit with Shukadeva Goswami and have this knowledge revealed about the Lord's creation. And he's going to go back to the spiritual world in 7 days. So if we just follow in the footsteps of Parikshit Maharaj, by trying understanding the personality and his plan behind the creation and the purpose and intention behind it, and we'll also go back to the spiritual world. But it just may take longer than 7 days. So let's be patient. And I'll just wind up the class there. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask any questions. And I just want to point out that I'm not so experienced at giving class and answering questions, but I do have my technical support crew over in the corner here. If there's anything too technical for me, I may ask them to help clarify, but please feel free to ask some questions. Thank you. And the microphone's coming around in a minute.
Just at this point of the understanding of the material universe, and the Srimad Bhagavatam explains everything in detail, but you have to be ready to hear. And I feel like the big thing is that we think that we know. We've heard from our upbringing what this world is and what it's like, and it's a very strong conception. And what is the purpose of this world, based on the surroundings and how the society is functioning in this world? It's functioning on a paradigm of what the universe is, that this is the only life, that life only exists on this earth, and that this all the other planets, stars that we see are just no life, and it's just us here, and we only exist for this one life, and then all the people are trying to enjoy this one life because they don't know that there's more than just this life. So this whole conception, a misconception of the universe and the world it's a very detrimental thing to our well-being. And to understand the material universe properly from the message of Bhagavatam makes a big difference on how you perceive yourself, how you perceive life, etc.
Yeah, that's a nice comment. I like the first point you made about hearing. We don't like to hear, particularly from qualified authorities. And one thing that came to mind is when Srila Prabhupada, he was a grihasta, and his spiritual master, not at that time, but he was attracted to Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and he was a grihasta, he had a business, and there was a program that Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was giving, and there were a lot of villagers and people attending the program, and I don't know the full details, but apparently towards the last day or two at the end of his program, HG Charanaravinda or Srila Prabhupada made time to go see Bhaktisiddhanta. And the people who were attending this program from Bhaktisiddhanta, they had the choice to go down to the nearest village and see this famous deity, or they could stay and hear from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. And most of them left. Right, but Srila Prabhupada stayed, or HG Charanaravinda, and Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he noticed, he marked Prabhupada, he noticed that Prabhupada didn't leave, he just liked to listen. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, what will these villagers go see? They'll go see this deity because they haven't heard, they won't know what they're seeing. They'll just see some bright clothes and some funny painting and some decorations. Because that's the culture, is that a lot of the people in India, they haven't heard properly, what the deity is and what Krishna is. So later on, when it was time for initiation, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he explained, it was explained that he was marked, Srila Prabhupada, because he likes to hear and he doesn't go away. So this is a very important thing in spiritual life, is that we should be enthusiastic to hear. And particularly, like Giridhara says, from the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because there were in the universes anyway, in the material creation, they were presented by Lord Brahma, directly from Krishna. And this will give us a proper understanding, because, like Giridhara said, we can't rely on our senses to see things, outside of the range of our experience. We have to accept a higher authority, and this actually means hearing, but also qualifying ourselves to hear as well. And it's explained, Tadvini pranipatena pariprasthena sevaya. We should actually approach a bona fide spiritual master to learn these things. And if we develop the right service attitude and mentality, then all this knowledge will be revealed. All this perfect knowledge. So thank you for that comment, Giridhara.
should perhaps technically apologize. Stated in the Bhagavatam when he was speaking about Krishna glancing upon the pradhana and thereby manifesting the material universe and all its creations within it. When that glance occurs, is the glance something that's kind of to help us understand that this thing happens? Because with our material understanding, a glance is something that occurs in a point in time, and therefore I guess my understanding was that we are eternally conditioned souls living within the material universe, and to be eternally conditioned, one is within that conditioned universe eternally. And now we're hearing that there's a glance which occurs, which begins that creation for us to live within it. So how does one understand that aspect?
That's a good question. I'll try and answer it. We understand in the lifetime of Brahma, he has a lifetime, and at the end of the material creation, at the end of Brahma's life, the material universe gets destroyed or dismantled, and from there all the living entities, they enter into the body of Maha Vishnu, right? And they stay there until the next creation, and the next creation takes place. So they're stored in the body of Maha Vishnu. And when we hear that the Lord glances, we understand that he has a spiritual body, so all his senses can do the functions of other senses. When we impregnate, we have senses for that, and with our eyes, we see. But Krishna's senses, they can do the functions of other senses. So when we hear that Krishna impregnates through his eyes, that's the way it is. He impregnates through his eyes. The details, I don't know exactly what happens because I haven't heard so many details. But yeah, he impregnates all these different elements just with his vision. Yeah. Anyone can elaborate on it. We have a few senior devotees and Giridhari Prabhu. I have a time delay lock. Do you know what a time delay lock is? It's when you have a safe and you have goods in the safe, and sometimes you set the combination, it unlocks in 15 minutes or an hour. So, sometimes you get a question, it takes a bit for the safe to open to give an answer. But yeah, that's just a basic understanding. Yeah, if that helps. Anyone else can elaborate on that?
You mentioned the point about being eternally conditioned. That's a controversial statement. It's been discussed many times in the official stance within our movement is that we're eternally devotees of Krishna and that we become conditioned. And it's not eternal, but it's what is the word that Prabhupada uses? You can't, so long that you can't remember. Time immemorial. Yeah, immemorial. And so, but when the conditioning, if the condition still is conditioned after the universe's time's up, then the conditioning souls merge into the body of Maha Vishnu, and then they're created again. Not that they're created like at that time, then they're put back into the material situation.
Sure, Prabhupada was giving class in Edinburgh one time, and the devotee asked him, I think it was actually a guest, asked him a question similar to that, is this like allegorical or is it, some symbolism or something? Prabhupada said, why would I come all the way from India to tell you a fairy story?
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.